It is now time for your council recap with your friend, my friend, Chad Brecklin, your city administrator. Chad, how you doing today?
I'm good, Jeremy. How are you?
You're looking good.
Thank you.
Looking really. I forgot to bring my tie today. I busted out the white shirt for the first time this year, but
I got to mix it up now and then. Working a tie into the rotation.
So, all right, good to know. I'll bring it next time. We'll kick off. We're discussing the Common Council meeting on April 14th. A stormy night, but the meeting went on, which we're thankful that the storms did miss Fitchburg, and sorry that it hit everybody else. But nevertheless, you kicked it off with a couple of proclamations, or I should say, it kicked off with a couple of proclamations.
Yeah, absolutely. The Common Council and Mayor offered a couple of proclamations. The first was recognizing April 25th as the official Arbor Day celebration, and there will be an event that day in Western Hills Park, I believe from 10 to noon, if anybody is interested in participating in that. And then also the second proclamation was declaring the fourth Saturday of this month as Celebrate Trails Day.
Pretty fun stuff there. Yeah, a couple of tree plantings coming up if you want to join in on the fun there on the website for sure. Down to the agenda, we start with Board of Public Works and approving a purchase of a Bobcat.
Yeah, so this is a replacement of an existing piece of equipment. The existing piece of equipment is approximately 10 years old, and this is part of our regular replacement schedule that the city plans for and budgets for, and this resolution simply approves city staff to make that purchase.
We move on to resolution authorizing acceptance of the 2026 street resurfacing bid.
Every year we do a street resurfacing project. There's a difference between resurfacing and reconstruction. Resurfacing typically means if there's curb and gutter, as example, on the street, that we're simply doing like what they call a mill over and kind of grind up the top 2 or 3 inches of the asphalt, and then they'll lay a new, brand new coat back over top of that without doing any sort of work to the curb and gutters as far as moving them. So this is something we do every year. We put it out to bid, and the bids came in, and I think they were just a smidgen over what we had estimated them to be, if I recall correctly. But ultimately, this was approved, and there will be a public information on this.
I was just going to say this.
On April 23rd at 5:30 p.m. in the Common Council.
Stay tuned. More information to come.
Yeah, sorry to take your thunder on that.
No, that's the only note I marked today for that. We move on to purchasing some LED streetlight replacements.
So we have grant funding for this particular project, and we believe this covers about 170 existing light heads. So those light heads are more than likely the high-pressure sodium lights, and they will be now changed out to LED lights, which obviously are more energy efficient, and ideally then lead to less staff time to do any sorts of repairs or monitoring them as well. So I think this total project cost was just over $60,000 and just under $50,000. 50 as in $50,000 was grant funded. So a nice project there that is using grants to help improve some streetlights here.
All right, we move on to amending the 2026 Capital Projects Fund for County Highway MM underpass work.
Speaking of grants, we also have a grant for this particular project, which I believe covers 70 to 80% of the total cost. And this project creates an underpass between Lacey Road and East Clayton Road on Highway MM, kind of basically at the top of that hill.
I was going to say it's right up on the hillside, if I remember right. Pretty close.
And this project, the grant funding does not include some of the design work and other things that lead up to the actual project itself. I know that this particular budget amendment was regards to some geotechnical work that needs to take place in advance of this project being fully designed and then constructed. So that budget amendment was passed. I think it was just under 10 grand or so.
All right, so we'll keep you up to date on that. Move on to Park Commission on the moving Fitchburg forward, a strategic urban forestry management plan.
Yeah, there was some discussion by the Common Council and some public input on this, either in person and or via email leading up to and during the Common Council meeting. And this has been a months-long process where the city began to create a strategic urban forestry management plan that will largely be utilized to manage the variety of different woodlots that we have here in the city. Well, I don't have the exact breakdown off the top of my head. Generally speaking, the city has about 800 acres of parks, open space, and woodlots that we're responsible for. So this was a process utilized by our Parks and Forestry Department to develop this management plan. It did offer opportunities for surveys and citizen or resident input. And ultimately, the Common Council did approve this plan. And next steps that our staff will be utilizing is to actually develop specific woodlot management guidelines using some of the principles that were identified in this particular plan. And they'll be developing, what it would take to then implement that woodlot management plan and identifying some costs associated with this. So I do not see that there is going to be any immediately visible anything visibly different in our woodlots as a result of this particular plan passing. There's still more work for staff to do before any work could begin down the road.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to sharing those as they come up. We move on to Housing Advisory Committee. They had approving an adoption of the 2026 Comprehensive Housing Study and Action Plan for the city of Fitchburg.
Yeah, so that we had a 2019, I believe it was, housing plan that needed to be updated. Obviously, the market has changed considerably since 2019. So we worked with a consultant as well as city staff, Common Council, some committees, commissions, and again, opportunities for community input. To update the existing plan and renew it, if you will, refresh it, and that was also passed by the Common Council.
All right, so move on to Tree Advisory Committee. They had approving the spring 2026 street tree planting project.
Yeah, typically every spring and fall there is a planting project that takes place. I think this one had roughly 220 or so trees as part of the overall project. We typically do similar numbers in the fall as well. So in most years, there's somewhere around 400 trees that get planted in city right-of-way, public spaces, parks, those sorts of things. The Common Council did approve this, and oftentimes this tree planting is funded in a few different ways. Sometimes it is tax levy money, sometimes it's grant funding, and sometimes it's developer cost. Whenever the new developments are built, developers are expected to pay a certain amount of fees associated with specifically towards tree planting. And most of these projects, between the spring and fall projects, have a combination of all three different types of funding in them.
It's pretty cool, too, to see where Anna's been putting them in, and you can see some of those projects out there on our website if you want to check that out. Moving on to a resolution for the Finance Department on a police canine vehicle replacement.
Yeah, the police department canine vehicle is due for replacement next year. Unfortunately, it's been having some maintenance-related issues and concerns. So we went ahead with council approval and are going to go ahead and look to replace that vehicle a few months earlier. By the time this vehicle gets purchased and upfitted with the specific equipment needed for police canine work, it'll probably be late summer, early fall before this vehicle hits the road.
All right. We have a resolution approving a purchase replacement for firefighter turnout gear. Yeah,
every year or so, the fire department has a regular replacement schedule for its turnout gear. That is oftentimes it's brown, light tan colored gear that you'll see a firefighter wear when they're on the scene of an incident. And those have a lifespan of 10 years. And we look to replace those in smaller batches to kind of keep the cost more sustained versus having spikes or peaks and valleys. So this, I think, was a total of 12 sets, roughly $50,000, and this was approved.
Then we move on to a resolution, and I'm going to sum this up as there's some changes in the financial structure, but a financial general code of ordinance change.
Yeah, I would encourage anybody who's interested in this specific ordinance changes, really, to take a look at the information that was submitted in the packet. There's a nice memo by our finance director that outlines what these changes all are. And also there was a fairly lengthy discussion at the Finance Committee meeting that preceded the Common Council meeting on the 14th. So ultimately, in working with Mayor Arata Frada, she had expressed a desire to create more purchasing efficiencies and any other appropriate efficiencies within the city. We all recognize that staff capacity is definitely limited, and our ability to grow staff capacity seems to be even more limited. And there were a number of changes that were proposed by city staff that will ideally make the purchasing process, contract approval process, and several other processes much more streamlined and efficient, where things don't necessarily need to come back to Common Council, 2, 3, 4 times in order to go ahead and move forward, unless it's appropriate that they need to come back there that many times. So the goal is obviously to make this stuff more efficient, reduce the impact on staff, and then ideally also reduce the impact in the time commitment for committee, commission, and Common Council members as well. So this was passed, and we look forward to implementing some things there.
It's fair to say, we review stuff all the time. As you look across the board, right, you're always looking for best efficiencies. You're always looking for the best processes that's put on staff to do all the time.
Right. And, we are always committed to transparency on where our tax dollars that we're provided are being spent. That is our obligation as I see it. And I always encourage folks to take a look at things through the budget process, both the capital improvement and operating budget, and stay engaged there. And another source of information is the finance reports that come out of the Finance Committee. That actually outlines every single purchase that the city makes. There's a lot of them, trust me, and it's going to take you a little bit of time to look through all of those. But every single month there is a rundown of every purchase that has been made, regardless of the dollar amount.
Well, and you mentioned too, we are getting into our first budgetary piece of the capital improvement projects will be coming down the road here. So it's your first, not your first, but as the processes continue, as you look at high to low, you got your monthly, you got your yearly, it's all there for you. So it'll play out here on the city's website, Fact TV, and right here, you'll tell us the updates here on our updates. Over to direct referrals, we start with a resolution approving an agreement of subdivision improvements for Lot 11 on the Orchard Point projects.
Yeah, so this is a Jamestown Quarry development project, which is across from the Target on McKee Road. This is a standard subdivision improvement agreement that the city enters in with development partners that outlines their responsibilities as well as those of the city.
And then we have approval of purchase of additional data storage.
Yeah, our data storage needs are continuing to grow exponentially, largely related to digital records and most specifically evidence in the police department. So we needed to increase our data storage capacity notably, and this resolution was approved that would allow that to happen.
We have amending the 2026 grants and donation fund budget for digital analysis of cellular technology. Easy for me to say.
Well, and it ties in nicely to the previous resolution that we just talked about.
More data.
Yeah, this is a grant that the police department is receiving from the Wisconsin Department of Justice. I think the total grant is just under $40,000 that will allow them to purchase some technology that will make it more efficient and easier to obtain digital evidence from things like cell phones or laptops, and then to be able to analyze that more quickly and efficiently.
All right. We have an authorizing of a contract with McMahon Associates, a service related to feasibility study, implement plan for joint fire and EMS district. Yes. I could have just said the bottom part, but
sure, yeah, no worries. So this is something that we have talked about a bit at times in the past here on this show, as well as a number of updates at the Common Council. But ultimately what this is a contract that would be done with McMahon and Associates out of the Fox Valley for feasibility and more specifically to create an implementation plan that would allow for the creation of a joint fire and EMS district with the city of Fitchburg and the village of Oregon. We did an RFP, or request for proposals. We received 7 proposals. In response to that, McMahon was evaluated by a group consisting of elected officials, public safety chiefs, and administrators to have the best overall proposal. And we do anticipate that work will begin on this next month. The Oregon Village Board takes it up next week. It's anticipated that they will also approve the contract. The city's portion of the contract will not exceed $50,000. And we do still have the possibility that there could be other municipalities nearby that choose to participate in this project as well. So we'll see how that comes out over the next couple of weeks.
And what's the timeline for when a first report might come back to council?
Yeah, we're really hoping that in 5 to 6 months this whole project will be complete. That obviously there'll be some additional conversation during that time and updates provided. And later this year that the Common Council, after receiving this information and assessing it, will likely have an agenda item or action item that will say, would they like to pursue this implementation plan or would they not? And then we will see where we go from there.
Fantastic. All right. We move on to a partial tax assessment refund.
Yeah, I'll cover the next two items, resolutions together. And basically, the city has an excessive tax assessment case filed against it by this particular property owner for multiple properties. We're talking about two of them here in that through the lawsuit process, our assessor's office determined that new information that had been presented through the litigation process is indicating that our assessments are a bit higher than they should have been for the 2023 tax year, and that we are going to appropriately issue a property tax refund based upon that new information. So ultimately what happened here is for one property, approximately $54,000 in tax refund was provided based upon the agreed or the new value of that property. Excuse me. And then in the second property, it was just under $3,000 of a refund. So total, just under $60,000 of refund.
All right. And then the second case here is an action claim from MMS Triverton and MMS Chapel Valley.
Yeah, so this is another tax, property tax related claim. This is a situation where an entity believes that they should be tax exempt and not expected to be assessed for property taxes. Our assessor has evaluated this situation and does not believe that they meet the statutory requirements for receiving a property tax exemption. And therefore, for the third year in a row, this particular entity has filed a claim against the city, and the Common Council ultimately denied their claim.
All right. Finally, wrapping up here with your next Common Council organizational meeting will be April 21st. So just had an election, so we always have an organizational meeting to kick off. Common Council meeting, next meeting is April 28th, and the next Committee of the Whole is April 22nd. Chad, wow, lots there. Again, you can go back and watch the meeting through the website, fitchburgwi.gov, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thank you.